for Tariq Allah Nasheed. Press 7 if y'all noticed that. On the internet now, the jig is up. Man, thanks to y'all. Let me say something, man. Let me say thanks to y'all. And I know some people just take this as a blog show. I know some of y'all take this as just having some fun. But what I want you to understand is that Mr. Nasheed literally lied on me. He called me a registered ex-offender. He flew to Baltimore to get a peace order. Then he paid his high-power lawyers to say that I violated the peace order and tried to send me to jail. In consideration of the babies that I got home, in consideration of the wife I got home, he got mad because I questioned the legitimacy of FBA. I never once cursed him out. He can't say the same about me. I never once threatened him. He can't say the same about me. I never once gave the impression that I was a threat to him, his freedom, or his family. Yet, because I questioned the legitimacy of FBA and then the legitimacy of himself, he went to the extreme measure to call me a registered ex-offender. Again, I know some people may take this just as a blog show. I get it. Some people take it as entertainment. But what I'm telling you, if a person will go to that extreme, there's something else going on. He had his followers believing that I went to California to do something to him. He had his followers believing that I went to California to, as he called, stalk him. What? When he know good and well, my intentions in California was to file the lawsuit because he refused to remove the slander of calling me a registered ex-offender. And he tried to do it with fake evidence that he plastered on the screen. Of course, he lost the lawsuit. And thanks for all of those, Starlight and everybody else, Crip, anybody else who have contributed to help in fighting this lawsuit over the years. I beat the lawsuit. With all the powerful lawyers, I beat the lawsuit. So again, I know you may thinking that this is just a blog show, but nah, it's that and so much more. Because every time there's some new information that comes about, I feel obligated to let you know about it. Yeah. Now listen, I could be wrong. I doubt it. But this show is about trying to fill in the blanks of the things that has been missing. Let me run it down to you. From the time that we have engaged Tariq Nasheed, no one knew his name. People believed around 1989 and was moving it towards 90, right? Got to understand what was going on at that time. At that time, hip hop, and I say it in the song, at that time, hip hop was conscious. If you get a chance, Google the CIA responsible for pushing NWA. The point that I'm making is that the conspiracy is that why hip hop was conscious and owned by a certain demographic the corporate structure and the government structure finance what would come to be clown rap or gangster rap. They will finance this thing, and they will push it through third parties. Then they would finance it to be played on the radio. They would finance these things. So when you look at that era, the whole thing about Cosmo Flex, the whole thing, somebody say, I think Tariq bars is beyond your bars. The whole thing about Cosmo Flex is that it could not hit because it was far too manufactured. Back in those days, people that would rap, they were organically motivated into hip hop. The only thing that they had going for them was routines. You know what I'm saying? Tariq had bars. Where was you back there? Anyway, the only thing that they had was routines if they were a group or something. But their bars were organic. When Cosmo Flex came on the scene, he came manufactured. And it just did not hit. NWA would ultimately hit. So the ideal was, from the conspiracy concept, is that the Cosmo was one who would get in the mist. And from my perspective, most of this stuff is about information gathering. Hip hop and the music industry has always pushed drugs through that vehicle. You can see it through, if you look at the history of Clive Davis, even if you look at the history right now in hip hop, you look at Fetty Wap, and you look at what the brother from Fugees. You know what I'm saying? So there was always, unfortunately, a criminal element in the entertainment industry. And in the entertainment industry, they have people to be spies and people to do their bidding for them. And you don't got to believe this. Call it conspiracy. Call it whatever you want. For those who are interested in the intelligence of this, you know what I'm saying? Then come on and listen. But those that think that I'm just playing around, then, hey, go ahead, brush it off. Brush it off. The point that I'm making is, from one step to another, it was all about information gathering. That's what it was about. Now, I'm going, and then not only was it information gathering, it also was about making money. I mean, because no one can definitively say what Marcus' job has ever been. Never. Family, you have never heard a story like this. That a person at the age of 19 catch a flight to California for $100. I mean, catch a flight for $100, find a place to live, and still on tour trying to sell music. Hold up. Let me make it plain for you. You have never seen nothing like this. A person had gigs set up for him on the West Coast, coming from Alabama as a rapper, claiming that $100 ticket got him to Alabama and that he slept in the Salvation Army. That's not always true when you pay attention. Because you can actually get the interview where he was in California pushing and promoting Cosmo Flex. Somebody was financing this. I'm trying to tell you. But hold up. The conspiracy is, or the conspiracy theory is, that back in Alabama, something took place. And when that took place, he was able to be scooped up He was able to be trained, and he was able to be put back into society. Let me show you something real quick. I don't know if this is Tariq Nasheed, but what I do know is that the way that the theme goes is that in 1987, there was a guy named Marcus Sanders. All right. There was a guy named Marcus Sanders. And this guy named Marcus Sanders got locked up for violating a police. In other words, I'm just going to share the gist of it. All right. Let me share the gist of it. In 1987, in 1987, Marcus Sanders was convicted of second-degree burglary and third-degree escape. He was sentenced to consecutive terms of 15 years and 10 years. These terms were split, with Sanders being sentenced to imprisonment for consecutive terms of 3 years and 2 years. Stop right there. This is in Alabama, where a burglary happened and the assailant named Marcus Sanders was trying to get away and he hurt the cop. All right. Now, what people have to understand that this may not be Tariq Nasheed. This may not be Tariq Nasheed. But I want you to check out the storyline. This is 1987. Tariq Nasheed is born in 1969. Now, how do we get to the Marcus Vincent Thomas? How do we get to that? Okay, here we go. Time to break it down. Are y'all ready? Time to break it down. All right. And then we're going to get to this. We're going to get into this. Y'all got to pay attention. Class in session. So Tariq posts this picture some time ago. And at the bottom of the picture, he says, "My mom and dad, who do I look like? Mom or my pops?" With Nathan Sanders. So if you want to know where the Sanders come from, it comes from his dad. But pay close attention. This is why I say this is strange. This is strange. So we know that his dad name is Nathan Sanders. So this is why everybody was saying his name was Marcus Sanders. I want you to pay close attention real quick. So everybody was saying his name was Marcus Sanders. But in reality, the lady in the picture, her name is Miss Shirley. That's not, from all research, is not his biological mother. In fact, sometime in the 80s, he was shipped to Alabama to be in the care of Miss Shirley. For all intents and purposes, whatever was going on in Bloomingdale, Michigan, he was shipped off. But this is the parents right here. How do we know that? How do we know that? Because there's a picture that had been floating around where on November the 12th, Nathan Sanders posts an old picture of Tariq. And the sister of Tariq comments on the bottom of the picture. It's going to get good in a second because I need to show you how we get from Sanders to Thomas. Look at Mom and Mark. Oops, Tariq. Now, for whatever reason, she was definitely being facetious and she was definitely pulling the cover off of a situation. Now, we know without a doubt that this is from the family of the Sanders. And we know.
All right, if y'all want to watch the rest of that, y'all could tune into my brother Taharqa channel, YouTube, Morris World TV. But today I want to deal with the Almex. I'm not going to be on long today because I got to interview this geneticist at 12 p.m. So the show is not going to be the whole 4 to 6 hours. It's going to be 2 hours. All right. So, by the way, King's Monologue. Let me just show this guy. This guy's a pseudo enabler. Let me just show his channel real quick because I want to give him all the shine that he wants. Because this guy, listen, I don't mind people showing and promoting blackness. I was black in the past or whatever. That is never an issue right here. The issue is the truth. King Monologue or the King's Monologue or whatever it is. He criticized Van Sertima's work. We're responding featuring Kamjiverse. Kamjiverse is another pro-black guy. I actually like Kamjiverse, but he's wrong on a lot of things. But I'm going to show, let me just show on the screen the guy's channel, King's Monologue. And what happened is, because people criticize Dr. Ivan Van Sertima can be wrong. Garfield can be wrong. Any scholar can be wrong. Once we get into this I worship mode, then we gotta I can't listen to you. So Kamjiverse, I hope you're not like this because King's Monologue is pseudo as hell. He's right about some things, but he loves to promote blackness in the name of pseudoism. Not because blackness, there's nothing wrong with saying the Egyptians were black ancient. I don't really have a problem with that. Ancient Israelites was black. I don't really care. But the issue is we trying to make Columbus. They came before Columbus. The guy wrote 19 editions. When you write, show me how many books from any author, black, white, red, yellow, or blue, that have 19 editions of their book. That means you're making changes. Originally, he said it happened, the transport from Egypt came during the time of Taharqa and all that stuff. Then more science came forward. Then he had to move all the way to the time before Ramesses. He's changing every time to try to fit something in because all the people look black. We got to stop this, yo. And listen, let me just go through this guy's channel for a second. King's Monologue. Let me just go through his channel a little bit so everybody could see what type of information. Can we do this checkmate? Confronted whitewashing. Look at this European origin of blackface. Kemet belong to Africa. It's not even a debate. I'm not even. Replacement, it already happened. A history of eugenics almost dies. I'm in Brotep. The inconvenient truth about ancient, it's okay to call them invaders. That's a debate I want to have. You said the Egyptians there today are not the ones, right? We could look at the history of when the Arabs came there and look at what the Egyptians did. How the Egyptians sold out the Nubians and sold them and gave them to slaves to the Arabs when the Arabs came to Egypt. And how they welcomed the Arabs in openly. So the population didn't have to leave per se. When did this mass Egyptian people leave? They can't show it. The guy, what's his name? He used to be a part of Amir Squad. What's his name? The guy talk about Egypt, Black Egypt and all that foolishness. He's crazy about Egypt and Nubia. But the point is to say that the people there change and they can't prove that. That's what always had them on pause. Oh, well, Herodotus said that 200,000 left and went to Nubia and da-da-da-da. They can't prove none of that. They can't prove none of that. They can't prove that the population changed over and all that stuff. Of course, Arabs came in, yes. But because they look lighter skin, they have a problem with that. Skin tone. We argued about skin tone in 2026. Well, anyway, let's get this Pseudo off the stage and let's get a real doctor on the stage. We're going to disrespect a doctor because we like his argument more than the other one. Shout out to Brother Unk and the team of Pseudo Killers and Community Skeptics and Sean from Mossy Warrior Clan for putting in some good work last night. I'm going to play a piece of this and then we're going to have a discussion about what actually is being said.
Okay, let me blow it up. There it goes. So,
mistold. And if it's been mistold, this administrative town that
the elders. And it's also okay to break away from old ideas. And that's what we sit at. So, Dr. Aiden, man, what do you think about that statement? And let's talk about, Diaz for a second.
I mean, it's powerful. I think I'm going to take it back. So I did a lot of my field work in the Republic of Mali. Let
me pause for a second and let me give everybody a shout out who has joined the show. Share the show to 10 of your friends, man. Tell them check out the show. It's the best show on Sunday mornings. All right. Shout out to Bad Marsh 815. Thank you. Amateur Scholar, Brandon Nesbitt, Mongo Slade, Rakeem 555, Dasharab, George Ricks, Eric Tyler. Who else? Joby Fresh, Original People, W. Walker L, Baby Bubba, Kujil Winkins, The Objective Perspective. Peace and love, man. Everybody subscribe to The Objective Perspective channel. Cross services. Peace and love to y'all. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, we're going to be respectful in the chat. But shout out to Pseudo Killers for bringing on this great scholar yesterday, the one that they criticized. But we're going to get into this real quickly.
Lived and worked there I traveled there 6 times. I lived there for 3.5 years off and on. Mm-hmm. And in Segu, which is a town outside of the capital city of Bamako, maybe 90 minutes, a little bit longer than that away from the capital city, there's this administrative town that the French chose as one of their sites to dominate the region. This was in the 1850s. Well, long before that, there was a figure named Biton Coulibaly. Biton Coulibaly was, it's going to sound like a tangent, but he was a young enslaved African man in Segu, in the Segu kingdom. And he went to the elders and asked if they would give him permission to marry. And they said no. Now, Biton was a member of the Tonjon. Tonjon in Bamana is a word that means the association of slaves. I'm going to just put the term, it's a union of enslaved persons. And so when the elders told him no, he kept going back. They kept saying no. He armed the other members of his Ton, men and women, and they started raiding the caravans coming out of the Sahara into the Segu kingdom, into the Segu area, and they destabilized it. And then he founds the Segu kingdom. So in Bamako, in Mali today, if a child checks an elder, the elders will say, you can become Biton Coulibaly too. With what am I saying? Within the internal logic of West Africa, and at least in Mande cultures, is this idea that age and gerontocracy are not just strictly to be respected just on ceremony. And that youth can overthrow elders if the elders are not standing in truth. And on top of that, you got the griots coming, from another perspective in Mande culture and saying, hey, if the story's not accurate, it's been mistold. And if it's been mistold, it needs to be rectified. So for me, like, Sheikh Anta Diop is coming out of that framework in West Africa where youth are not just to be downtrodden by elders, right? It's a conversation. It's a dialogical conversation across generations. And I think that, I appreciate the words. I mean, obviously he was speaking in the language of science because he studied nuclear science, right? And he was operating at a time before like the social scientific method was just coming into existence. It hadn't like been fully fleshed out. And in the French speaking world, it was emerging differently than in the Anglophone speaking world, right? So he used the term science, but today we would refer to what he was doing as social science. Now, the thing that I love about that quote is him talking about a polyvalent team, a team with multiple valences. Your chemistry, like, chemical compounds, elements have valences. So what he was referring to was interdisciplinarity. That's how we talk about it in the academy today. And for me, my journey, I can tell you a little bit about my journey, but as an academic, I had to learn a little bit of sociocultural anthropology. I know comparative political, political economy. I also know sociocultural history, right? These are all different frameworks. My minor inside grad school, my outside minor, I'll tell you about that in a second. My outside minor was African art history. When I went to the University of Graduate School, my first year, and I'm dating myself now, 1992, I talked to my thesis advisor. He was like, yeah, you need to get over to the University Graduate School and tell them what your major and your minor is going to be. So I go over there, special building. All they do is just register graduate students for, their designations. And so I told them I was doing history with a focus on Africa, and China was going to be my second field within the field of history. And the registrar said, don't you want to do African American studies for your minor? And I was like, do I have to? And she was like, no, you don't have to. I was like, okay, so China is what it is then. And then what's your outside minor? My outside minor was African art history. So for me, when you're going through grad school, you have to figure out what your pathway is through the institution. And I'll tell you that because where are these collections located? Who's writing the metadata in?
I know you. So all right, so we got Diop's, and I think I don't want nobody to gloss over him at that Cairo symposium coming with interdisciplinary studies. So he is definitely one of, I don't want to overrule, but he's definitely one of the ones that actually pushed that, right? So we're going to stand on that pillar. Also, he pushed for the Egyptians being indigenous Africans, okay? And he threw in the Negro black. They brushed that out of there because there's no way to really, you can't really compute that, whether a person is black. That's crazy. Anybody could be black at that point. So proper, they got that out of there and say they're indigenous Africans, right? And they would range the skin color and phenotype. So that's proper par for the course. And so that indigenous Africanness is like for the first time that somebody actually forced them to change their stance. And I think with those two items right there, that's the greatest accomplishment that anybody that looked like us could have did to push academia in that position. Prior to that, they was all in the Middle East trying to study Middle Eastern cultures and all that, and they wasn't studying African culture. You first talk a little bit about Black man in the night.
Right, and there's reasons they're there. They might be there for politics and statecraft. Computer can allow us to compare data sets across geographic space and time, across the space-time continuum in a way human beings had never been able to do before. And so when we look at Dr. Ben, when he's thinking about the Black, it signals love, great beauty, but in other, and the Bakke decision on reverse discrimination had just happened. And it was John Henry Clark, Dr. Clark in that meeting was stood up and shouting match, right? And so that led to the founding of the AHSA. I think I got that right, but it's like the African Heritage Studies Association. And so this was largely Black scholars who broke away from the African Studies Association, and they did it. It's all in my book. They did it at the same time, like Patrice Lumumba had been assassinated like a few years prior. And so African Studies departments, one of the complaints that Dr. Clark, this is why Dr. Clark's on my level. Dr. Clark was like, we should be here to study African people's past from African, and African studies is not just history. It's like Black people in the United States, specifically African Americans in the United States, because there's like Jamaicans here and there's Nigerians. our schools do not teach effectively. There are so. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying facts. Please.
Oh, you just co-sign it. Yeah. Look, there are so many illnesses that are endemic to Africa that we're African people. We're talking about cultural forms of expression, not just biological, right? So, what are the cultures?
Found it. Sean, you want to add something to that or ask? I know you're familiar with Dr.
All right, hold on 1 second. Before we segue into that, man, I want to go ahead and promote this class right here. All right, Deeper African History, Reclaiming Memory Through Evidence and Story, man. Methods development by scholars across diaspora. This is a powerful class that the great doctor has put together, man. We support the efforts, man.
I do talk about archaeology from textual sources, and most of those sources were authored in the colonial period.
Gotcha. So based on your research and your investment into obtaining knowledge regarding certain subjects, let's just deal specifically with one of his claims. Is there a Gele, a griot in Mali that has taught the story of Mansa Musa and spoke to it in the manner of which substantiates the story that is being written and regurgitated over and over that was told in Cairo, Egypt?
No. So, basically Al-Umari, a Syrian historian or early Syrian historian, traveled to Cairo and met with the warrant chief who ran the area where Mansa Musa stayed when he was in Egypt. And there was a conversation between Al-Umari and this warrant chief where the warrant chief alleged that Mansa Musa's predecessor had built 200 or 2,000 boats. The account varies. And then they sailed into the Atlantic. A huge whirlpool opened up and swallowed all the ships except the king's ship. And the king escaped by backpedaling in his canoe and then never to be heard from again.
Did y'all pay attention to what he actually said? Because a lot of people who tell the story have not even read the story. This is what's sad about the whole thing about the Africans sailed here. They don't tell the whole story of what actually happened. And I want you to listen again to what this scholar, I really don't care if he's a scholar. Look at what he said. I just want to point this out. Look at Jeremiah Judah saying, is he saying Africans didn't come here before Columbus? Yes.
And spoke to it in the manner of which substantiates the story that is being written and regurgitated over and over that was told in Cairo, Egypt?
No. So, basically Al-Umari, a Syrian historian or early Syrian historian, traveled to Cairo and met with the warrant chief who ran the area where Mansa Musa stayed when he was in Egypt. And there was a conversation between Al-Umari and this warrant chief where the warrant chief alleged that Mansa Musa's predecessor had built 200 or 2,000 boats. The account varies. And then they sailed into the Atlantic. A huge whirlpool opened up and swallowed all the ships except the king's ship. And the king escaped by backpedaling in his canoe and then never to be heard.
So if they got swallowed up by a big whirlwind or whatever in the waters, how did it get that they came to here to the story? How did they get to the Americas if they got swallowed up? You see how people lie? People just lie. Why do you need to lie? Because you have a motive. So now, who else did some of our elders teach that story to? It's crazy. And the information it was there the whole time. Al-Umari, it's there. Anybody could read it.
Who ran the area where Mansa Musa stayed when he was in Egypt. And there was a conversation between Al-Umari and this warrant chief, where the warrant chief alleged that Mansa Musa's predecessor had built 200 or 2,000 boats. The account varies. And then they sailed into the Atlantic. A huge whirlpool opened up and swallowed all the ships except the king's ship. And the king escaped by backpedaling in his canoe and then never to be heard from again. But the griots in Mali, look, I sat at the feet of griots in Mali. I worked at the Institut des Sciences Humaines, which is the Institute of Social Humanities in Bamako, these are all African institutions run by Malians. And the griots say that didn't happen. They couldn't imagine or fathom the leader of an empire leaving his empire. It's not in keeping with Mande cultural values. And so they say no, and they dispute that. They're like, they allege that Mansa Musa, if he did communicate this to the warrant chief in Cairo, was saying that to cover up his own assassination of his predecessor so that he could assume the throne.
Okay, so I'm glad that you. I don't want to break it down.
No, you good. I'm done. You good.
So hold on, Sean. Let me get this super chat. If anybody want a question, you got to do it through the super chats. That's the only way we do it. So you got JJ200 says, is he saying Africans didn't come here before Columbus? He got the eyes.
Not in a way that we can verify. And that's all that you can say. If there's all the evidence is, I don't even call it evidence. All the claims are circumstantial. Right? I won't call it evidence because evidence assumes that it's legitimate and it's past a bar where it's evidence is accumulated in a quantum. It's from multiple sources simultaneously that are reinforcing these things happen. We don't have material culture, cultural evidence. There's no single African artifact that predates the Columbian expedition to the New World that has ever been discovered on a controlled archaeological dig anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. Not one.
Let me stop the show for a minute. I gotta respond to this pseudo. That's just the most biggest pseudo in the history of YouTube. The lie is telling people Phoenician ships were not sailing. Where is the evidence of the Phoenician ships? Come on here right now. I'll put up $100.
Oh no, don't tell him to come up here. That dude is
no. He could come up here if he got $100 right now. Come up here and prove it, and I'll send you $100 if you're right. You could come on stage right now. The link is at the top. And if you can't prove it and you're scared, don't make these pseudo comments in my chat. Get out of here, because you're a goddamn pseudo. What's up, Mika? What's on your mind, by the way? How you doing, by the way?
No, I was listening. I thought I heard you say that the so-called scholar, I don't know if he's a scholar or not, but you said that he's a pseudo.
No, not him. Not him.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard you said that. All right.
I ain't call him a pseudo. I don't call scholars pseudos. I don't say they misrepresented. There's information to prove that they're not correct. That's it.
So what you say about his information?
His information, he on point.
Okay.
I'm saying King Monologue is a pseudo. He's a pseudo enabler. So he brought on Camgiverse to come against this guy. But you see, what happened is, that's Rob, you're right. Godfrey Flush and Nick's done made him rich. Yeah, but you see, this is the problem. Whenever we have a discussion, right, everybody is black. So you had Ronoka Rashidi, who is like, you have levels to this. You have a John Henry Clark, who is the top scholar, in my opinion, ever in the past, right? But sometimes the top scholars go by what the other scholars around them. They like, yo, they do research and we all cool. So I'm going to rock with what you say because guess what? You was with us and you use some of my information, I use some of yours, and you think that the person studies and research the same way you do. So you're like, I'm going to repeat what he said because I think he did the research. So you had Walter Williams, You have the highest level is John Henry Clark. Let me just say that. Then you have the Dr. Benz. Then you have the J.A. Rogers. J.A. Rogers at the top two. Then you have the lesser guys. You have the Ranuko Rashidi. You have the guy that does the Egyptian tours. That's I forgot what his name is right now. Pardon me for that. But then you have the lesser guys. So what happened is these lesser guys now are repeating what Elder said, not knowing if what the Elder said is 100. J.A. Rogers was a hell of a researcher, but not everything he said was 100%. But I'm just saying this to say that we had elders who taught that blacks was here before Columbus based off of the heads that they saw with the features, but that's circumstantial because you can't rate, you can't say somebody's black based off of how they look. But back then, it's like, oh, you could see that they're black. They look, so lookership worked for them. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I'm just saying to everybody, don't disrespect the elders, because without the elders, none of y'all would be researching. So we can't disrespect the elders. I wouldn't have wrote a book if it wasn't for the elders. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have gone to England and promote my book if it wasn't for the elders. So to disrespect the elders and say, hey, he's pseudo, I wouldn't call Dr. Ivan Van Sertima pseudo. I would say that I disagree on certain things based off of this, and I don't think there's evidence for what he's claiming. But again, let me take that back a little bit, because a lot of people who are making the claims of blacks here in America or Africans here may have not read Van Sertima's book, because his claim is not necessarily say Africans came here and this and that, That is not his complete hypothesis or his thesis. You got to read it. And he's basically giving a hypothesis of certain things. The problem I have is when he went in front of Congress and said that Columbus said something that he didn't say. That's my problem with Ivan Van Sertima. Yeah. Yeah, Leo Wiener. They used Leo Wiener's book, and Leo Wiener was a pseudo. But he had a Harvard background. So when they say he's from Harvard, the top dog, then they're like, yo, this guy must be on point. Now look at this guy right here. Garfield, it's your responsibility to prove Phoenician ships from the north. You made the claim. So if you're saying that I was proved that they were not sailing, how would I prove they're not sailing? I'm not making the claim that they were sailing to here. If you cannot find slave ships, why would you say Phoenician ships still be around? No, my brother. Prove that the Phoenicians came here. Prove them leaving a tomb, a death, writing in Phoenician. Show something. So what are you talking about? Get out of here, man. You're just a pseudo and a liar. That's what it is. You're a liar. I'm not calling you pseudos no more. You're a liar. You have the truth, but it don't fit what you want to go on the YouTube and spew, the lies. It don't fit into that, your mission. So you can't spread lies. But let me play a little bit more of this, and then I'm going to get into Ivan Van Sertima stuff.
But Doc, you said earlier about disease. You know, there would have been some type of learned immunity in the immune system from people that had already traveled. That in itself kills the argument, because this would be new and introduced. Right. So, and that kills the pretendians too, because if we're dealing with novel diseases coming to the New World through the Columbian Exchange, which now puts you at odds, and you did it right again.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the pretendians, because they didn't even read Van Sertima properly, because he alleged they were Africans. But the pretendians say, oh, our ancestors sprang up fully formed from the forehead of Zeus right here in North America. No, that didn't happen. You know, so they didn't even read the book right. They half read it. Maybe they were scanning it, and then they just came up with this theory. Of course, like, it's connected to African-American genealogy, and they say, my grandmama said, and the grandmamas be all over TikTok saying, I ain't tell that boy that.
She fighting back.
Right. Disrespectful. Bring him here. I'll make that boy pick a switch. Not the brown ones, the green ones.
I had a follow-up question.
Yeah, go.
Quiet. So my follow-up is to deal directly with what you were just saying about the griots and so on. We all know that these storytellers are going to tell us everything that we need to know about the Mali Empire, the history, and what.
Do you have $100 to bet me that the Phoenician sailed there?
Do you have $100 to bet me?
I'm asking you a question. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I have $100. Do you have $100?
Do you have evidence Phoenician sailed here?
Yeah. So let me ask you this question.
No. We got Mika right here. Send her the $100. I'll send her $100 right now before you talk. I don't want you on my channel, period, unless you pay money. You don't get to come on my channel like you go on others and spew pseudoisms. If you don't have You're not saying a word. Hold on a second. Mika, do you have Apple Pay?
Whoops. I got Cash App too.
You got Cash App too. You got Apple Pay and Zelle. What do you have?
I have Apple Pay, but I don't know how to do that.
All right, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
What do you have, Mr. Mo 777? What do you have? Cash App, Zelle. What do you have?
I have all of that.
All right. So do me a favor. Put your Mika, put your Cash App or Zelle in the side chat. Send her $100. Then you could come back up. You could go in the private chat to the side and send the evidence. Send the not the evidence. Send the money, and then once you bring the evidence, we talk about it. You're not getting no airplay on my channel, none, unless you pay. Once you Mika put your thing, I'm gonna play the video. Once he pays, send you the money. Let me know, and I send you my money, and we do the bet. I'm sick of you. You go on all these channels and spew. I don't let you come on my channel. I don't let you do it because you talk crap. And that goes for all you pseudos in the community. If you can't pay for what you're saying, that means you can't stand on it. So once you pay her the money, Mika put her thing in the chat. There's her Cash App. Send her the $100, and I'll send her $100 right now. Oh, he dropped off. Oh, you dropped off by accident. I'm telling you, I'm not dealing with these pseudos. I'm not dealing with them. I'm not dealing with them because they waste people's time. I'm not gonna be. I'm gonna interview Aaron Elhike, the pseudo genealogist that I don't like, but we're gonna do it. Me and Biblical DNA, we're gonna do it.
Oh.
We're gonna do it. Well, anyway, let me play a little bit more of this, and then I'm out of here. This is crazy.
They've obtained and passed down. Some of it could be a little exaggerated. Some of it could be right on par. Now, you said earlier that it is known to people that Mansa Musa himself was not in line for kinship, but a usurper. Nothing wrong with it. We know it happens, right? And Can Musa is his name. So we have evidence for that, but we don't have evidence for all the other things that was, I guess, labeled circumstantial evidence that's argued in chapters 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of this book.
Right. I mean, you not asking me a question, so I'm just you made a declarative statement. I agree.
So I want to know this. Here's the question. And this goes back to the story of going out into the ocean. Did Africans possess the technology to travel the ocean in the earlier parts of the 13th and 14th centuries before vital technology was ever created in the 15th century to help set sail? Could they take them logs and get out in the Atlantic and cross it?
I mean, the short answer is not that we know of, right? And on a couple different levels. One, the Niger River system, and you can add the Senegal River system to this too. Those systems, I mean, these are river faring systems. Facts. The canoes don't have sails. Now, I want to just put a pin in this, Brother Sean, because Van Sertima alleges, and when he testified before Congress, he alleged sustained contact between the Americas and Africa, right?
Now, that is not true. I'm not going to call it Van Sertima a liar. He's rest in peace, my brother from Guyana, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, who has done great works. He has other works outside of this that is great. But when he went in front of Congress, I have a problem with that. That's just not true. That's simply not true. All right, let me see. So what I was about to say, because I was going to bring up what's his name, Omawali's article from debunking the Black Indian theory. He mentions it, but listen to the doctor say right here. He's going to say what I was about to say in a few minutes.
Did Africans possess the technology to travel the ocean in the earlier parts of the 13th and 14th centuries before vital technology was ever created in the 15th century to help set sail? Could they take them logs and get out in the Atlantic and cross it?
I mean, the short answer is not that we know of, right? And on a couple different levels. One, the Niger River system, and you can add the Senegal River system to this too. Those systems, I mean, these are river faring systems.
Facts.
The canoes don't have sails. Now, I want to just put a pin in this, Brother Sean, because Van Sertima alleges, and when he testified before Congress, he alleged sustained contact.
And by the way, I hope y'all know Van Sertima's book and his teachings was in schools. So it was what he did. He had a breakthrough, like, yo, and people would argue, like, yo, his shit is in the schools. It was in the schools. So it's like, this is pseudo stuff being taught in the schools. I'm not calling him a pseudo. I'm saying the information is pseudo. Notice the difference
Between the Americas and Africa, right? To have sustained contact, well, you know, he alleged the Nubians did it. They had square sails. I'll leave it to the chat to just go Google, can you sail against the wind with square sails? I don't even have to tell the answer to that. Right? So that's a problem. And go ahead. I'm sorry, Miss Juju.
No, you good.
So no, because Ivan Van Sertima is a scholar and he says it. So when you go on the internet like Facebook, YouTube, and all that, who you ain't got Van Sertima credentials. So how you gonna say he's wrong? Why he wrote 19 editions of his book? That alone will tell you something. That alone tells you something. What happened is information started to come out that made his information look wrong. So he had to change his book. Every time he had to change his book, 19 editions, y'all. Have y'all read all of them?
I talked about cell technology and how that's actual technology in the engine. And Africans were mostly riverboat people, and they didn't have that, you know. So
that's right.
I'm sorry. Keep going.
And this is speaking to both your points. Like, there's no. I'm not saying it didn't happen or it couldn't have happened, but we don't have any evidence of a shipbuilding industry in West Africa.
But Van Sertima in chapter 3 of his book talks about maritime travel, saying they had a whole naval suit. That would leave the center of the desert in Mali, travel.
Go ahead, Sabio.
So what he just said, I wanted to join the show last night because this is why I asked all these pretendians and these Hebrew Israelites that one simple question: show us ship technology in Western Central Africa before the 13th century, please. He just body slammed him. I'm not a scholar, but he just basically body slammed all of y'all. And I asked that question a couple months ago. Show us ship technology in Western Central Africa before the 13th century, please. Right there, I was like, damn.
Yep. All right, so let me go back to the video.
All the way to Senegal just to get these ships from Mali to Senegal and then get in the Atlantic and go.
Right. And look, whether the account alleges 200 boats or 2,000, both are big numbers, but you got to cut down a lot of trees. Like, it takes to build a shipbuilding or seafaring industry. There are things you have to have. The canoes that we find that are archaeologically preserved, like they use knotting from ropes to lash these structures together. Well, when you're crossing the Atlantic, those ropes become waterlogged and they can actually collapse, right? So when people are saying that, Oh, here we go in the chat. Yeah, it's a square cell. You just go check that boat from Khufu. You're right. There is one at the Great Pyramid Complex at Giza, but the Mediterranean is not the Atlantic.
No,
right?
Different animal.
Yeah, and there currents like there's a Canary current that runs through the Canary Islands and off of it, but the problem is potentially you could get there, but how are you going to get back? Right. And there are
Let me
go ahead.
I would like to add this point right here. First of all, Europeans bumped into Barbados. They didn't know where the hell they was going. We need to stop that.
They didn't.
The reason they couldn't get out of Africa because they didn't know they was in Africa and there was nowhere else to go. Yeah. So if I were to blindfold you and erase your memory, right now, take a human being, erase all his memory of everything that he ever knew, and throw him and his family in the middle of, say, Denver, Colorado, and the forest of Denver. It might take you 100 years to get about that forest. It ain't like they knew where they was going, right? That's true. And so the Europeans didn't know where the hell they was going. I get tired of that, man. They didn't know where they was going. It was we trying to find another route to China, right? Man, they was trying to go around taxes and all that. You know how they doing it. They bumped into it. I mean, by sheer utter luck. No, Christopher Columbus did not discover America, or he was in the Caribbean. He was in Barbados, man. And it was luck. And luckily, they was like, oh, wow. And remember, that was part of the process that helped erode, right? The natural philosophers, quote unquote, authority. Simple as that. It was by luck. So they get science by luck.
And let me address this, because what my brother Dasharab says, what he did is he evolved. So what he did, for people who don't know, he was saying, hey, they founded the Native American culture. Now he changed that over the years. From the 70s to the early 80s, he changed to the late 80s to 90s to saying they influenced it. He said they were the original Americans or whatever. He then said they may have been. Because remember, when he revised his book, he had an academic canonization during the Rutgers, because Rutgers produced the book in the later years. So he had to expand the footnotes, and but pretty much the same things was the same. The Olmec imagery, the diffusionist parallels. He had no new sites, burial inscriptions, genetic linguistic demonstrations, but he was pretty much the same book. But the purpose of the changes was to have the classroom adopt it, so it could get scholarly respectability, institutional durability. So the adjustments he made, he had a longer bibliography. He framed many of his claims as open questions and emphasized possibility. So now it's more of a thesis than more of a complete claim. Like, yeah, this is this. These are African. These are that. So that's why his hypothesis, it remained as a hypothesis, and he had to frame it that way so it could be accepted by academia, because he was just making some outrageous claims he was making with his first book, with the first edition. All right. But he did change a little bit and started posing these things as questions. There's a possibility of this, or maybe this happened because of this. So he asked questions instead of that. All right. That's just to address what homeboy asked. He never abandoned his theory. He changed how he worded the things, which is very important when you're writing a book. All right. All right. You're a trans-African. Yo, Cosmo is funny.
Because now they say, oh, new plants, new, flora, okay, animals, fauna, look. Yeah. So let's not play this game like they was experiencing. Yeah, we're going to go and chart it out. That didn't happen. But once they figured it out, right, Cedric said all the time. He say, man, so you got sailors, right? All of a sudden, they would come back, and now they got a whole, they got like a wealth of knowledge that the scholars of the time never even had, because now they sailed there. They say, whoa, we seen whole different people. So, man, I just wanted to add that to the thing. I think I talked a little bit too long, but that's the point.
Before y'all go on.
All right, let's read the chat.
Morgan. Shout out Chuck Morgan.
Shout out to Chuck Morgan. Enjoying the presentation the questions and the panel. Thank you, Dr. Ayton. Yeah, Chuck is also a serious dude when it comes to SUMA and the information, and he's a proponent of giving the truth. He do not play black SUMA because they the black heads. He don't play that game. He don't play that game. Appreciate you, Chuck, for your unwavering work in the community, man. And you know, you're definitely a friend and a supporter of the show. And one last point, and I'm gonna shut up. I think you talked about so does Sertima have a daggone degree? I'm tired of playing. I gotta take the gloves off, man. Because these spoons the whole thing full of pseudos, and then you get quote unquote. You mentioned them. Who you just talked about? What's the name you talked about that said it was in the archives? What's his name? I can't even. Anthony Broader. Anthony Broader's playing too. They all playing. Dr. Ben played with the subject, act like they all got trapped in this wild idea that we came to Americans. It's okay.
No, they relied back on Van Sertima. Dr. Clark tells you that. He said that's not his lane. All of them, even Diop, the exchanges between Joke and Van Sertima all link those email exchanges, and those letters that were exchanged all say that was his field. That was his argument.
Yeah, that's his field, right?
Yeah,
but
they backed out of that.
They back good, okay.
Not
but we ain't know
original.
We just realized they backed out of it. But ain't nowhere in the world Anthony Broader in 2026, who's actually on an archaeological dig, he should not be supporting that idea at all. So I rest my case. I'm not leaving none of them out of it. I don't feel like playing because the pseudos and the fake Indians and the fake Egyptians is all over the place, and it's stopping people like you, Dr. Ayton, from giving real history because they don't want to hear it. They want to hear the African-American Egyptian, the African-American Native American. You know what I mean? They want to hear that. That's spectacular. And it gets in the way of courses that you have of authentic African history. That's my point. Rest my case.
Right. So, I mean, Van Sir, I can speak to it real quickly. You know, his doctorates were honorary. We can talk about what an honorary doctorate functions like in the academy.
Let's talk about
it. If Harvard were to give me an honorary doctorate in cognitive psychology, I'm not qualified to speak on that. I don't know nothing about it. I mean, I do know a little bit, but I don't know enough to have done the coursework and the field work, right? Which are it's a two-tiered, you know, kind of evidentiary standard you have to meet. Van Sertima earned his bachelor's degree from the School of Oriental and African Studies at University of London in 1969, and in 1977, the year after he published They Came Before Columbus, he earned his master's degree. Other degrees he didn't. When he wrote the book, he didn't have a master's degree. Okay, so that's his actual biography. You know,
it functions as an award, don't it? Honorary degrees, if you put it right, and when you try and get a job or something, you gotta say this wasn't an award. You're not supposed to carry it as a title. I just want to say
right. That's right.
Oh, big up to this book right here, Sean P. What SARS-CoV-2 taught me. Yeah, I was joking when I that was a little childish of me. When Sean got childish. Yeah, you got to get this. I'm gonna send you a free copy. I'm gonna send you a free copy. Yeah, this is definitely armed us in the pandemic. Yo, big up to Sean. And I shouldn't have did that. I should.
We passed it. We passed it. We know what was going on. We know what was going on.
All right, I'm gonna move on because I gotta end the show at 12 o'clock. So that's the doctor right there that actually refuted Dr. Van Sertima's work. And it's not about saying you're wrong. It's about we don't have any evidence to support this conversation. That's how scholars talk. All right. Peace and love to Musa Dana Sabi, by the way. Peace and love to you, bro. All right. So let me get this in here, because this was a very important article right here. And I don't know if Unc meant Cuba, because that's where Columbus ended up first. They went to Cuba and the people were pointing to Hispaniola. And they went to Hispaniola. The people couldn't speak the language, so they had to use sign language. And the people were pointing towards Hispaniola. And they took some of the Native Americans, or the natives of the land, and took them back to Spain, taught them Spanish, and then they became the translators for them. So for those who said that the translator spoke Hebrew and all this foolishness, the translator spoke Hebrew, but the people didn't understand. They didn't understand. The natives didn't understand Hebrew. He spoke Hebrew. He spoke Aramaic and I think another language. I don't remember what he spoke. But anyway, debunking the Black Indian myth from they came before Columbus to Hidden Colors. Dwayne Wong, Omawali. This is a very good article. Now, I want y'all to pay attention. I'm going to spend 15 to 20 minutes on this. Then I'm going to go to some more information on they came before Columbus. And then I'm going to talk about second Esdras. And then I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to play a video with the FBA versus iShowSpeed. And then we're going to get into it. Because I got to teach the people before I get out of here. If the interview ends by 1 o'clock, I might go live again from 1 to like around 3:30 for those who want to see some more information. And we could teach some more. And we could go in depth with. I could go in depth with second Esdras, because second Esdras is actually a fake book. It's a pseudepigraphia, and what happened is nobody should use it. But it's basically a book that Christians promote. If the Christians promote it, it must be for a reason. Why? Because in the first 2 chapters, it's replacement theology. God said He's done with Israel. So He's going to have a new people He's going to give the blessing. And that's why because the Christian is saying, hey, they try to put away that you got to be an Israelite to be saved. So they make up these chapters 1 and 2, copy some of the New Testament and look like Jesus copying second Esdras, but it's really the other way around and trick y'all. Now we arguing about it 2,000 years later when Ezra didn't even write the book. Then the book has 3 different writers, 3 different writers, maybe 3 different languages. And it's supposed to be all written by one person. Written in the 1st century, the 2nd century, and the 3rd century. Tricking y'all using that as a book. Second Esdras was a guy that there was more continents in the world for Columbus. Second Esdras 6 verses 42. Well, he didn't know about no Arzareth. He didn't talk about Arzareth. All right. And anybody who wants to come on and challenge what I'm saying, you're free to come on and we could talk about it. All right. Israel is not referring to the northern tribes. It's not. In They Came Before Columbus, Ivan van Sertima put forward the argument that African people were in the Americas long before Columbus was. There are some problems with this theory. In the first place, there are no Egyptian historical records which suggest that the Egyptians ever sailed to America or even attempted such a journey. In They Came Before Columbus, Van Sertima argues that Egyptian journey to the Americas happened during the rule of the 25th dynasty, which was the Kushite dynasty that ruled Egypt. Van Sertima never explained why he selected this particular dynasty, but his reason for doing so is important because he later altered the date in African presence in early America to 948 or circa 1000 BC. Van Sertima was forced to alter his thesis in light of new evidence, which demonstrated that the Olmec civilization was older than was originally believed, which leads me to the next issue. Because the Olmec civilization is one that has been largely shrouded in mystery, there has been a number of theories about the historical roots of the Olmec. Van Sertima was among those who argued that the Olmec had African origins, whereas others such as Mike Zhu have argued that the Olmec civilization has Asian roots, not only because of the apparent Asian features of some of the Olmec sculptures, but Zhu also attempted to draw a connection between the Olmec script and Chinese characters. Let's take a look. Welcome to the party, my big bro. Alex, I want to make you an honorary member of the Dagger Squad. Whether you want to join or not, I'm going to make you an honorary member because I like you. I like your vibe. We're going to interview Aaron Eli. We're going to interview Aaron Eli, the geneticist, at 12 o'clock. If you have any questions, put them in the side chat. Me and Biblical DNA are going to he's going to do most of the interview because I don't know his work. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite and interview him and act like I know all his work. I know his work on the Khazars, but I don't know his work on the other stuff. All right. So if you have any questions that you want us to ask him, we're going to ask him and we're going to replay it. I don't know if I'm going to replay it at 1 o'clock when the interview is done, but I'm going to probably go back live at 1 o'clock. All right. Just let you know. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. So let me get back to this right here. So now, the guy was making a point that the Chinese script and the Olmec script are similar. He was drawing a connection between them. So the Olmec motifs and the Shang writing and modern character in English. So now, as you can see, you could see a little bit of similarities. I don't know. I'm not a linguist as far as that is concerned. So I'm not even going to make up, but I'm going to say that Mike Zhu's chart comparing the Olmec script with the Chinese characters. Below are pictures of various Olmec sculptures. Right? You have some that look like they look Asian and whatever. All right? You have some that look as what we would call quote unquote African features, big nose, thick lips. All right, these are some other ones. There have been a number of diffusion theories regarding the Olmec. Van Sertima's case in They Came Before Columbus is the best known. Certainly not the only one. The mysterious origins of the Olmec civilization has invited a lot of speculation. And in Van Sertima's case, he speculated about the Egyptian sail to the Americas that influenced the Olmec civilization. But there simply is no historical evidence to demonstrate that demonstrated this, which is why Van Sertima was forced to alter his thesis in some respects. Van Sertima also argued it was Columbus himself who suggested that Africans were in the Americas before he was. Van Sertima makes this claim at the very beginning of the video below. Let's check it out.
This evening is based on my book, They Came Before Columbus, African Presence in Ancient America. A great deal of research has been done. One has become aware of far more things that have emerged from excavations that help to confirm with almost an absoluteness what we have advanced in the past, that there were Africans in America before Columbus. They came to America not as slaves, but as masters. I am not the first to suggest there were Africans in America before Columbus, nor is anyone in the modern period. Columbus is the first man to suggest it. In his diaries, and there is a marvelous book, a huge book, a trilogy, in fact, published in 1904 by John Boyd Thatcher, 3 volumes. It covers more than 1,200 pages, which deals with all the diaries and voyages and journals of Columbus, in which he points out that on his second voyage, Native Americans of Haiti, which was then known as Hispaniola, came to him and told him that black people had come in large boats from the south and the southeast, trading with the Americans in gold-tipped metal spears. Columbus did not believe this, perhaps, but he did a very cautious thing, which is very important to us, in that he sent samples of these metal spears back to Spain. And they were assayed, they were examined by the Spanish metallurgists, and they ruled that these spears had the same ratio of gold, silver, and copper alloys as spears then being forged in African Guinea. Furthermore, the Portuguese told Columbus when he returned from his first voyage, the Portuguese told Columbus that they were aware of Africans leaving from the Cape Verde Islands and going far to the west with merchandise in large boats.
All right. Van Sertima repeated this claim again when he testified in front of the House of Representatives in Congress. Now, I am not the first to suggest there were Africans in America before Columbus. Columbus was the first to suggest it. Columbus actually said in the journal of his second voyage when he was in Haiti, then known as Hispaniola, Native Americans came to him and told him that black people had come in large boats from the south and southeast trading in gold-tipped metal spears. Probably Columbus did not believe this, and that fact in itself would not be enough because the so-called black people could be any people. It could be dark, bronze people from the South America. However, Columbus actually sent back on a mail boat to Spain samples of these gold tips. All right. I want to make a point of clarification here. Columbus never claimed that he saw black people in the Americas. Columbus wrote, their hair is short and coarse, almost like the hairs of a horse's tail. They wear their hairs brought down to the eyebrows, except a few locks behind, which they wear long and never cut. They paint themselves black, and they are the color of the Canarians, neither black nor white. Some paint themselves white, others red, and others of what color they find. Some paint their faces, others the whole body, some only around the eyes, others only on the nose. The description that Columbus gives certainly is not a description of black people in the Caribbean. In fact, Columbus writes that they were not black. Van Sertima claims to be referencing Columbus, but he's actually referencing Bartolomé de las Casas' writings. De las Casas gave this description in his account of Columbus's voyage. When on July 4th, he ordered sail made from that island, in which he says that since he arrived there, he never saw the sun or the stars, but that the heavens were covered with such a thick mist that it seemed they could cut it with a knife, and the heat was so very intense that they were tormented, and he ordered the course laid to the way of the southwest, which is the route leading from these islands to the south. In the name, he says, of the Holy and Indivisible Trinity, because then he would be on a parallel with the land of the Sierra of Loa and Cape of Santa Ana in Guinea, which is below the equinoctial line, where he said that below that line the world are found more gold and things of value, and after that he would navigate the Lord pleasing to the west, and from there would go to this Hispaniola, in which route he would prove the theory of the King John aforesaid, that he thought to investigate the report of the Indians of this Hispaniola, who said that they had come to Hispaniola from the south and southeast, a black people who have the tops of their spears made of a metal which they call guanin, of which he had sent samples to the sovereigns to have them assayed when it was found. Of 32 parts, 18 were gold, 6 silver, and 8 of copper. Neither Columbus nor de las Casas wrote anything about African spears. There's an inference that Van Sertima makes, but he presents his inference as a fact. Nowhere does de las Casas suggest that the spears he was referring to were identical or even similar to the spears in West Africa. Moreover, how would he have known? Did the Spanish also assay the spears of West Africa to know what ratio of gold, silver, and copper alloys were found in the African spears? Van Sertima does not say, but he jumps to the conclusion that the spears that were sent to Spain were African spears without providing a basis for why he believes so. A second problem with the manner in which Van Sertima uses this piece of information is the assumption that the black people whom de las Casas refers to were African. Columbus was quoted before as noting that the natives sometimes painted themselves black. So for all we know, the black people being referred to were people who were painted black as opposed to black-skinned people. Even Van Sertima himself admits that the people who were trading these spears could be dark bronze people from South America as opposed to African. Van Sertima's scholarship was flawed in many respects, but he made an attempt to challenge the racist scholarship of his time. Unfortunately, the scholarship that he has inspired has tended to be of a worse quality than Van Sertima's was. For example, whereas Van Sertima argued that African influenced the civilization of the Americas, Clyde Winters goes further by suggesting that Africans founded the Olmec and all other major American civilization, which is a claim that Van Sertima never made. Winters writes, the first civilization to appear in America, called the Olmec culture, was founded by Africans. The original Maya were probably Africans. The Aztecs, Zapotecs, Toltecs, and Maya usually occupied urban centers built by Africans or Afro-Indians. Hidden Colors also makes the argument that Africans were in the Americas before Columbus. In the documentary, Umar Johnson claims that Africans were going back and forth, engaging in cultural and economic trade before Columbus. In How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Walter Rodney explained that if any African canoes reached the Americas, they did not establish two-way links. If these two-way links were established, Umar fails to cite specific examples because there are no examples. This two-way trade never happened. Phil Valentine is even more confused. In the documentary, he says that Mansa Musa is the same person as Montezuma. This statement is horribly misinformed. Mansa Musa never sailed to America. Mansa Musa took the throne after the previous ruler, Abu Bakr II, went on an expedition to sail the Atlantic Ocean. He never returned, though some, including Van Sertima, argued that he arrived in the Americas. Mansa Musa never traveled to the Americas. So how could he have been Montezuma? The two likely were not even alive at the same time period. I'm not completely dismissive of the idea that Abu Bakr could have, in fact, successfully arrived in the Americas. Let me interject right there. I'm rejecting it completely because the story said that they were swallowed up. All of them were swallowed up except the king. That's what the story says. So how could they sail to the Americas when the story don't even say that they sailed to the Americas? But anyway, that's another story for another time. Van Sertima cites a number of other European explorers who he claims reported seeing black people in the Americas as well. I'm not suggesting that no African people were in the Americas before Columbus. I'm merely pointing out that the scholarship around this topic tends to be very flawed and misleading. My boy Dwayne Wong is being very careful with how he talks about the elders, and he's better. He's more humble than I am. I'm very straightforward. I say that the elders are wrong. But you wanted to interject, bro?
No, I mean, I just appreciate the fact that you know, the last part you just said. It's not that you're not saying that there were no Africans in America. It's just that the scholarship that you're referencing right now can't be corroborated, unequivocally. That makes sense. But if you look at the emblem of America and the majority of the emblems of America, all the way up through the 18th century, all of them depict dark-skinned Afroid-looking people. There are no, red-skinned people or anything like that in any of those emblems of America. As a matter of fact, any maps you see of America from the 15, 16, 1700s, all along the east coast of America, only depict dark-skinned Afroid-looking people. So, I mean, to suggest that they weren't here at all, I feel like it's obvious that America was a multicultural place already before Columbus came.
May I ask you a quick question? Does dark make the person African?
I'm not saying that dark makes the person African, but I'm saying that a person that today, if you look at them today based on the American ideology of race, they would be considered an African or a black person. That's what is depicted in all of those maps.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you a serious question. I understand what you're saying, right? It doesn't make them Africans, because remember, I'm
not saying it makes that. I'm actually agreeing with the African Americans who say, some of them who say, hey, we were here before Columbus. I mean, when you look at those maps, they have.
But that doesn't make dark-skinned people Africans. I think you're wrong in that sense, because if you go,
I'm not saying that they're African.
Wherever the equator is, remember, people have to have larger nose because of the breathing process. When you study evolution.
Right, but the east coast of America is nowhere near the equator.
The east coast of America?
Yeah,
well, I'm talking about South America anyway. I'm not talking about
I got you. All I'm saying is that those people who are African American who make the claim,
they make the claim that they were here before. I don't know.
And I don't know either.
Each individual makes the claim, but we don't know if it's true.
No, we don't.
Right? Because we hear stories that Indian. That's what I'm saying. They make the claim, but we don't know. Based off of genetics, we look at the genetics what we have here as far as genetic evidence, and we don't see E1, B1A for one before Columbus. We don't have any evidence of that. So I'm saying to you, I don't have any evidence Africans. I'm talking about strictly Africans. If we're going to say all humans come from Africa, so we are all Africans in that sense, yes. But in the sense of modern day Africa, as far as a connection from the BC time period to now, as far as from 5,000 BC coming up until now, there's no evidence of anyone traveling from anywhere that we call Africa today coming to the Americas. There's no evidence of that. That's where I'm going to leave that right there. All right. Well, let me finish this off. One of the most baffling claims to me is the idea that the slave trade happened in reverse and that Native Americans were shipped to Africa, not the other way around. There's not a shred of evidence to prove this. Moreover, I don't agree with that. There were a few people that were shipped to Africa, Northern Africa, in the 1600s from North America to 1670 from the Connecticut area where I live. They were shipped from this area to North America, but they were returned. So for those who I'm a very fair person. Native Americans were shipped to Africa, but not to West Africa, to North Africa. So we need to be clear, because the British control a lot of areas all over the world. This is why the British Israelism thought that Britain was like the return of Ephraim or Manasseh. They thought they were like where God put them. The Jews were teaching that this was the fourth corner of the world and all that stuff. They thought England was the shit because England controlled so many areas. In India, they controlled in North Africa, they controlled Israel, they controlled many areas. So people thought that they were trying to conquer. They were like the modern day Rome. So, but as far as shipment, they did ship Native Americans back to North Africa. That is a fact. All right, just to say that I don't agree on everything that my brother says in the article. There's not a shred of evidence to prove this. That's incorrect. Moreover, the slave narratives all make it very clear that the enslaved population in the Americas came from Africa. So much so that in Cuba, some enslaved persons committed suicide in hope their spirit would return to Africa. That actually happened at the Ebo landing in Georgia, where they committed suicide instead of actually being slaves. Despite this, some individuals argue a mass colony of Africans were not shipped from Africa to America. The truth is that Black Indians were shipped from America to Europe. They were then shipped from Spain to Africa as a commodity for African resources. These Black Indians, now mistaken as African Americans, were shipped back to America and classified as African slaves. This part of our history is what the school systems fail to mention in history programs. What would the point of shipping Black Indians to Europe? All right, I'm not even going to get into that part. But all right, I'm done with this article here. Any comments before I move on to what I'm going to speak about? Any comments? All right. When they came before Columbus, I wanted to say that some of the things that changed with his book, and when you look at Africans founded or shaped Olmec civilization, because we do have Olmec's DNAs. We have the mtDNA for the woman. We do have that. We do have a couple samples of the mtDNA. I don't know if there's anything new. Biblical DNA would have to let me know. Olmec heads depict Africans, consistent cranial matches, local variation only. African crops pre-1492. No secure archaeobotany, that's absent. Linguistic ties. Sound law systems, chance resemblance. Art proves migration, inscription routes are absent. Revisions strengthen thesis, new data, none. Now, let me get into some of the claims that he makes in the book. They came before Columbus. African contact with the Americas occurred before Columbus and has been systematically ignored due to Eurocentric bias. The evidence normally cited, general absence arguments, appeals to historical injustice, analogies to later European denialism. All right. I'm not even going to respond to that. Y'all could do that on your own time. African seafaring and a transatlantic capability. Van Sertima claims Africans possess maritime technology capable of Atlantic crossings. The evidence cited was Egyptian boats, West African riverine navigation, ocean current drift theory, and capability does not equal to occurrence. No African ocean-going vessels are documented in Atlantic context. No ports, harbors, anchors, ship remains, or maritime logs exist in the Americas. Drift theory explains accidental movement, not sustained cultural transfer. Scholarly verdict is possibility asserted, occurrence unproven. The Olmec colossal heads. Van Sertima's claim the Olmec heads depict Africans based on facial features. The evidence cited broad noses, full lips, helmeted heads, visual resemblance to modern Africans. The art cannot be used as biological evidence. Olmec skeletal remains show local Mesoamerican continuity, not African ancestry. Facial diversity appears across Olmec art, not uniquely in the heads. Helmets are ball game regalia, not ethnic markers. The argument is circular. Resemblance presents resemblance. Pretty much. It's an iconographic misinterpretation of racial projection. I actually have an article that actually dealt with this whole thing too. Hold on, let me see if I could find it. Let me see if I could find it. Columbus, Spears, Graphenique. Let me see. All right, I'm gonna get to that in a second. African cultural parallels in Mesoamerica. Van Sertima claimed he shared motifs prove African influence. Evidence cited pyramid shapes, stone carving, religious symbolism. Parallel invention is well documented globally. Similar solutions arise independently in complex societies. No transmission mechanism is shown, no dates, no routes, no intermediaries. False diffusion is the verdict. All right, linguistic parallels. Van Sertima claims African and Mesoamerican languages share common words. Evidence cited isolated phonetic similarities, selective vocabulary lists. Historically linguistic requires regular sound correspondence, grammatical structure alignment, and demonstrable ancestry. None are present. Random similarities expected across unrelated languages. Scholarly verdict, invalid linguistic method. Let me put this on the screen, by the way, too. This on the screen, made this bigger. Yeah, I'm rushing because I wanna get to this. Metalworking and technology. Van Sertima's claim African metallurgy influenced American societies. Evidence cited superficial technological comparisons. Metallurgy in the Americas follows independent trajectories. No African metallurgical techniques, alloys, or tool styles appear archaeologically. It's unsupported. Africans were identifiable as black in antiquity. Evidence cited modern racial categories retrojected into the past. Race is a modern social construct, not an ancient biological category. Ancient peoples identified by culture, polity, language, not race. The argument collapses into anachronisms. Van Sertima claimed Western academia deliberately erased African achievements. I'm not going to get into that. It's a lot of what ifs. All right.
This conversation is a lot of what ifs, Garfield.
Let me see what else I need to add to this, because I have a whole notes on every chapter that he made and everything. But I don't want to get into all of my notes and all that stuff. Let me see what else I want to bring out. All right, let's deal with this article right here. Refuting Afrocentrism in Part 1, Olmecs were Africans. All over the internet, you may have seen Beethoven is black with an accompanying picture, or that Mozart was black, or Hannibal from Carthage, or other historic figures from antiquity were African Negroids. We all know it's not true. Afrocentrists just take things that agree with their viewpoint and warp anything they can and attempt to say that they were African. There are tons of these lies going around the internet with enough people who believe in Afrocentrism religiously, convinced that the white man hid knowledge of past African greatness. This will be a series of posts on refuting Afrocentrism, with each successive piece focused on a different part of the Afrocentric narrative. I've had an interest in Mesoamerican history since I was a kid. I was reading adult level books when I was 10. I got this book, The Mayan Prophecies, Unlocking the Secrets of Silla. Recent new evidence has said that the Olmecs and the Maya were easy to differentiate in the classic period, which was their golden age. But because they had language and cultural distinct from the Olmecs, it said that while the Olmecs were building La Venta in Mexico, the Maya were living in loosely associated nomadic groups to the east and southeast. That holds that the Maya developed from the Olmec, but Saibal is 2 centuries older than La Venta. Though the researcher said that there was a flow of ideas and culture between the two locations, that through those interactions, a new society developed. He says from 1700 BC that La Venta and Saibal were freely trading ideas, technology, culture, and maybe even people. From this study on Maya genetics, you can see that it says the closest group to the Maya were the Arhuacs, the first recorded Caribbean inhabitants. They are not genetically close to the Mesoamerican Zapotec, Mixtec, or Mixtec, who generally cluster together. The Mixtec are only related to the Maya on a linguistic basis. Alleles DRB 0407 and DRB 10802 alleles are found in 50% of Mayans. They are also found in other Amerindians. But the Maya's high frequency may be because of a founder effect from the Mesoamerican Caribbean population. They described Maya-specific HLA haplotypes. Some HLA genes have many possible variations, allowing each person's immune system different protections against certain diseases. Language and genes do not completely correlate in microgeographical studies. This further proves another point that I read. The Mesoamericans are the furthest genetically from Africans. Wow. Let me say that again. This further proves another point that I read, that Mesoamericans are the furthest genetically from Africa because of no genetic mixing between any population with the Mesoamericans, allowing their DNA to go from distinct East Asian, because Native Americans are descended from Siberians who crossed the Bering Land Bridge 12,000 years ago. Since they evolved completely separated from Africa, no gene flow from anywhere else in the world got to the Mesoamericans. And over thousands of years, they developed to be a genetically distinct group to their own distinct genetic subclade or clade. This is attributed to isolation from the rest of the world as well as faster evolution. That is another reason why I believe the once great Mesoamericans are how they are today, because one, the Spanish killed off all the high status people who were more intelligent, as well as disease killing them off. The slave population they had would have been more immune to the diseases, faster evolution. With evolution in a hot climate for tens of thousands of years in comparison to where they first evolved when they were still genetically similar to East Asians, it obviously changed their genetics to make them distinct from East Asians. Now, to see Olmec genetics who are pretty similar to the Maya as noted above. Findings were indirect evidence of Olmec-Maya relatedness, further supporting the theory that the Olmecs were the precursor to the Maya. Again, language and genetics do not correlate in a microgeographic area. A significant genetic output is not noticed at all in Mesoamerican populations, while other world populations are genetically related. As I said above, Mesoamericans are so genetically distinct due to fast evolution as well as no gene mixing between regions, which over time cause their DNA to mutate to the clade they have today. Both Central and South American Indians are genetically distinct from the rest of the world. So we can see that all Mesoamerican populations are mostly similar to each other, except the Maya, who are pretty unique, most likely due to the founder effect from the Caribbean. The name Olmec is a Nahuatl word meaning the rubber people. Nahuatl is an Aztec language. They extracted latex from rubber trees. The Olmecs were thought to have died out around 400 BC. Now that we have a good background on the Olmec and Maya connection, as well as Maya and Olmec genetics, let's see what this Afrocentric Olmec theory is about. The theory of Olmecs being Africans was first developed by Abram and Sertima in the 70s. He wrote a book called They Came Before Columbus. All right. Sure, from direct outward appearance, I can see how people would believe how the head looks like that of a Negroid, but genetics tells us a different story. Van Sertima claims that Mali seafarers reached Mesoamerica and had consistent contact with the Olmecs, trading ideas and culture with them. As I said above, most Mesoamerican populations are related to each other, with having no admixture from other parts of the world that all other populations have. So if the Malinese people did have contact with them, we would have found some of their DNA in Mesoamerican peoples today. We obviously know how Hispanics came to be today, Spaniards mixing with the natives. So if we have Spaniards mating with the natives and Mali supposedly had contact with Mesoamerica, then logic would dictate that genetic testing would find African blood in Mesoamerican population. But as I noted earlier in this article, Mesoamericans are genetically distinct from all populations. We can see here that neighbor joining analyses were done by putting together many worldwide and American populations. Both analyses show that the Meso and South Amerindians are not related to the Nadine because they came in one of the three migrations out of Siberia into the Americas. They are also not related to the Eskimos. Mesoamericans also do not show any relatedness with Polynesians, Australoids, Caucasians, or African blacks. Genetic evidence also suggests that people moved from South America to North America into Siberia. So why are there clear Negro features on the Olmec head? Because they were obviously modeled after the Olmecs themselves. We know that the shapes of people's nose comes from the climate that their ancestors evolved in. It has to do with temperature and moisture in the air. Wow, what else does saying to Alex? In areas where it's extremely dry and has a lot of heat, a larger mucus area is required to moisten inspired breathing, inhale air, which is why a more flat and narrow nose is needed. Olmecs and West African descended peoples have short, flat noses because they live in wet and tropical areas, whereas Nubians and Egyptians have longer and thinner noses due to living in the desert. Here are some people who are said to be descended from Olmecs. There are pictures of statues as well as modern day people who look like them. The Olmec statue heads are clearly of the indigenous people in the area and not of West African Negroes. Because of that one man theory of all those Africans with absolutely no understanding of genetics or human migration will write these articles saying that any and all peoples and old ancient peoples were Negroid based on shoddy evidence and only physical appearance as well as cockamamie stories. I'm pretty sure I've given away more evidence than is needed than the Olmecs were not Negroid, but alas, you still have people who parrot this clearly. Because of genetic testing as well as evolutionary factors which explain the Negroid-looking statues as well as most Mesoamerican populations being similar with each other, completely above any and all notions of the Olmecs and all Mesoamericans for that matter to be African Negroids. All right, let me see what else you got refuting Afrocentrism. Let me see what you got. Category archives. What's this? They did not come before Columbus. Anybody want to add on? All right, so I did enough about this Afrocentrism and the whole Columbus stuff. We could go into a whole detail with that, but I do want to get back to, I want to touch on second Esdras for 1 second. I want to show some people a manuscript that I actually have in my files on second Esdras. With second Esdras, what's important for anybody who studies the Bible, you want to know, for one, who wrote it. What is it about? When was it written? Where was it compiled? Why was it written? How was it received by Jews and Christians? I know this guy on Facebook asked me a question the other day, and I said to him, who wrote it? Who wrote second Esdras? They don't know. Now, another thing is, did Jews refer to second Esdras. That's a problem. That's a problem. Well, let me get my other show together. I got to do this interview real fast. Let me see if I could find it real quick. Where did that Dr. Aaron to the studio? Let me send this to Biblical DNA. Biblical DNA, here you go. All right. All right. So let me get to this second Esdras stuff real quick. Second Esdras was written by Ezra. You would see it in the whole book. Another problem with second Esdras is First Chronicles 5:26 was written between 380 BC and 250 BC. Josephus says the tribes was beyond the Euphrates, because between the Tigris and the Euphrates, we have no one quoted in the book until probably Clement of Alexandria in the 2nd century. It's not in the Greek Septuagint. It's not in the Jewish canon. It's not in the Dead Sea Scrolls. No one knows this writing until like around the 2nd century. Another thing is Arzareth is a proper noun. And when you have a proper noun, it was a regular noun, but when it became Arzareth, it became a proper noun, which is a problem. Esdras chapter 1 says Ezra the scribe wrote it. Esdras chapter 3 says Salathiel wrote it. That's a contradiction. So there's a contradiction within the whole entire book from chapters 1 to 16. That's a problem. Second Esdras 13, Josiah ascended to heaven. The Syriac Greek version says 9.5 tribes. It also says the king was Josiah. In another version, it says the king was Sennacherib. The Latin manuscripts alone have chapters 1 to 16. The Greek manuscripts only have chapters 3 to 14. They don't have 15 and 16, and they don't have 1 and 2. When was it written? Languages, we have Koine Greek, we have late Biblical Hebrew, Koine Greek, and we have Latin. So chapters 1 and 2 is written in Latin. Chapters 3 to 14 is written in late Biblical Hebrew, like from the Dead Sea Scrolls time up until like the 1st century, late Biblical Hebrew. And the chapters 15 and 16 is written in Koine Greek. Koine Greek don't exist before Alexander the Greek. So we know Ezra couldn't have wrote chapters 15 and 16. He couldn't have wrote chapters 1 and 2 because it's written originally in Latin. Chapters 3 to 14 is written in late Biblical Hebrew, which didn't exist at the time when Ezra existed. All right? It's not in the Jewish or Hebrew canon. It's not in the Septuagint. It's not in none of those books. It only enters the canon in the 1500s after the Council on Trent. They made a deal to put it in as an appendix in the King James Version. It's not in the canon of the King James. It's in the appendix, I think. I could be wrong on that. I got to double check that one. Whoever wrote between chapters 3 and 14 in the 1st century was reading Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar, who was having a debate. Sanhedrin 10 to 3. The person who wrote 2nd Esdras 3 to 14 was quoting that, because they was arguing about where the tribes were. So they were quoting Deuteronomy 29 verses 27. That's used to create the proper noun Arzareth. Ezra 3 verses 1 says Salathiel wrote it. It also said 30 years after the temple destroyed. It's actually referring to 70 AD, but it's writing like it's talking about when the Babylonian temple was destroyed during the Babylonian time period. The book called the Apocalypse of Zephaniah, it actually mirrors what 2nd Esdras is all about. 2nd Baruch also. All right. Again, the first 2 chapters was written originally in Latin. Chapters 3 to 14 was practically written in late Biblical Hebrew. And chapters 15 and 16 is written in Koine Greek, which was written in the 3rd century. Zondervan, the Encyclopedia, British Encyclopedia, all state it's chapters 3 to 14 is written in the 1st century. It's written by Salathiel, aka Ezra. Let me see what else I want to talk about with that. Esdras in the Latin Bible. Hold on a second here. Oh, there's a video I wanted to play too. Hold on, let me play this video before I get out of here.
Or you don't know. Tariq Nasheed the Bozo is now crying his eyes out because I Show Speed is doing a Caribbean tour, just like he did with the Africa tour. Like, come on, man. These FBA bozos are so hateful that the young man can't even go on a tour and celebrate with other black people without them having a problem with it. What's the issue? Why are you mad for? What are you mad? I mean, I'm not getting this. And yes, you're right. The parents in both households need to be investigated. Both of them, not one. Both of them, his parents and her parents. Yeah, this is ridiculous. But let's get into this. Let's see what this bozo got to say. I didn't watch this video, by the way.
We're all back, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Y'all raise your hands. So you were in the space where Jamaicans delineated from Africans too? Yeah. Yeah, a lot of folks are talking about the importance of delineating. All right. And we are not going to be shamed out of delineating. There's nothing wrong with delineating and recognizing your.
Shout out to CD No Handle for the $2 for setting it off. Whole lot of ones beat a whole lot of nuns. Yep. Tariq is such a bozo.
Unique ethnic group. There's nothing wrong with that. Do we have any people in here who have a problem with us delineating? All right. I saw the video of the Ghanaians kicking out the Nigerians. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. Yeah, everybody delineates.
Tariq, we're not doing this. Like, I gotta fast forward this. I'm putting you in like double speed or something, because it's like you're saying nonsense now. We talking about America. We're talking about black people in America. That's another thing about you FBA bozos. You constantly say we our own unique lineage and all this other stuff, but then you try to do stuff that you see other black people doing that would make us ununique. That quote unquote delineation stuff, that's not unique. That would actually make us following behind other people's footsteps. But let's get into this.
Everybody delineates, but we're the group. We're supposed to not delineate. We ain't supposed to delineate. You know, so damn now. Oh yeah. This thing about speed. I Show Speed is over there in the Caribbean now.
Oh yeah.
And
now he's talking about speed, so I can put him back in normal speed. Let's go.
Some of the tether class, they think that this is like some form of antagonism towards us. Nigga, Speed is in the Caribbean now, so how do you like that, FBS? What's the point of antagonism? Why would we be mad at that? I don't even get why we're supposed to be upset with that. I don't even get why that's supposed to make us upset. Speed is a foundational Black American.
No, he's not. You said y'all said Speed was Jamaican. But yeah, let you keep talking. I'm gonna try to find that video.
I Show Speed is a foundational Black American. So why would we be upset with a foundational Black American going to visit different countries? And y'all need him for clout. That's what we've been saying. You need us for clout. And we don't have a problem with him going to Jamaica. We don't care. He's getting his money. You know? He's getting his paper. And he's going to go over there, make his money, and go home. You know? Man. Yeah, he's getting money, just like he made money touring Africa. That was a money-making endeavor. And shout out to him. Shout out to him. But all of that, how do the FBA feel about that, nigga? Nothing. We really don't care. More power.
So why you talking about it? You do care. Y'all do care. Like we already showed y'all that y'all was crying. Y'all was hot when he was in Africa. And y'all doing the same thing on the internet now that he's in the Caribbean. You're mad. You're mad.
To him. Get your money. I Show Speed is a foundational Black American. All right.
We're not doing that. Yeah, let me share my screen real quick. Can y'all see my screen? Y'all seen the switch up? Everything's still working. Let's play this. Let's play this. Here we go.
I've never been there, but we from Africa. Who from Africa? I've never been to Africa. But you're African. Your descendants is African, Dad. But you know how far of a descent that is, though. That's 1900s. We talking. That's not that far. We weren't African in the 1900s.
He meant 19th century. That's what he meant. He said 1900s, but he meant 19th century.
Yes, we was. We were bought to slavery in like 19 freaking. Slavery was over in the 1865, 66, something like that. I mean 1800. Yeah, still African descent. It's still African descent, right? But just because you were born in Africa, you're still African descent. All right, but my mom's father's Jamaican. Nana's dad's Jamaican. That's still Africa. No, that's still.
As y'all heard, what did I Show Speed father say? Bring that back a little bit. Bring that back a little bit.
Born in Africa, you're still African. All right, but my mom's father's Jamaican. Nana's dad's Jamaican. That's still Africa. No, that's still Africa.
Shout out to I Show Speed for educating his father. Sad to see. It's not sad to see because it's sad that it had to be that way. It's supposed to be the reverse, but hey, it is what it is. At least some education getting got. Like I don't understand. Oh, shout out to you, Dragon Blood TV. Happy you finally caught it live. Yes. Yes, I Show Speed's family is from Jamaica. They also said his mother's side of the family was from Ghana. I think I got that somewhere or not. I don't remember. But yeah, his mother's side of the family is supposed to be from Ghana or something too. So again, Tariq just changes the definition of who is foundational Black American and who is not. Whenever it's convenient. Whenever it's convenient. That's right. Throw up that Jamaican flag. Shout out to the Jamaicans in the building. Yeah. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find that clip. Matter of fact, we're going to look at that later. See if we can find the clip of him talking about his mother's side of the family comes from Ghana. Shout out to East Coast Kev for setting it off. I mean, not for setting it off, but setting it off for himself, though. With the 10. Oh, yeah, that's coming. Tariq is going to make his way to the Caribbean. But matter of fact, he might not because it'll be too obvious. It'll be too obvious now. It'll be too obvious that he's clout chasing I Show Speed. It'll be too obvious. So let's get to it.
He travels the world. Most of us travel. All right. And then we come home. We don't have a problem with traveling. We do not. All right. We really just don't care. Hernandez, no, he's FBA. I think one of his grandparents is Jamaican, something like that. But yeah.
Look, I know FBA like the back of my hand. And how is one of his grandparents being Jamaican still make him FBA, but Umar Johnson having a great-great-grandparent who's Cuban makes him Cuban? How? How that happen? How that work? How Roland Martin having one grandparent who is Haitian make him Haitian, but somehow I Show Speed having a Jamaican grandparent make him not Jamaican. See, it's whatever. Whenever Tariq make it up, however he go along. However, it don't matter. Tariq can just say anything. Chicken butt mouth. Shout out to the Mad Head Doctor for that. Chicken butt mouth. You don't never know what's gonna come out of Tariq's mouth when he open it.
Hey, he's foundational Black American. His family is
like he couldn't even say it right. He had to mumble it.
FBA. Yeah, his family is FBA. Well, Speed, when he goes to he's always claiming to be some ethnic group. When he was over there in Africa, then he tried to claim Nigeria. Then he said, at one point he said he was Portuguese, some shit.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. You're lying. You're lying. Like stop trying to play games, because now you're trying to undermine it, saying, well, yeah, he probably do got a Jamaican grandfather, but you never know if that's really true, because he just be saying stuff. Well, his father said that.
He just be saying shit. That kid is FBA. He's an FBA kid. You know, Speed just be saying shit. Yeah, then he tried to claim Ghana. He just be saying shit. Speed just says stuff. This Tiffany Haddish. Yeah, Tiffany Haddish is, she's Eritrean. We've been through that.
So Tiffany Haddish is Eritrean. If I'm not mistaken, isn't like one of her grandparents Eritrean? I don't think both her parents are Eritrean, but somehow she's Eritrean, but somehow I Show Speed is not. But let me show you what I Show Speed talking about, how saying his mother's side of the family is from Ghana. I found it. Here we go.
Let's get right, bro. I do got family that was Ghanaian. My mother's actually Ghanaian on my mom's side. So it's excited to stream here. Rodney!
Yeah, I just looked it up. Tiffany Haddish's mother is African American. She Black American, Native Black American, her mother, but somehow she's Eritrean. Look how he contradicted himself in one go around. I Show Speed, FBA. Tiffany Haddish, Eritrean. How? Where's the consistency? What does that mean? All right, come on now. Oh, you back today. I know you mad. I know you mad. So I Show Speed is lying? He just talked about how his mother is from Ghana. He's lying. And was his father lying about the Jamaican part? Come on now, cut it out. Cut it out. I know it hurt. I know it hurt. Like I said, I know it hurt. See, this is the reason why I said there's no way that you could be smart and be FBA. It just don't work. It just don't work, family. It don't work. Too many inconsistencies and too much of people not knowing their real history. Like it just don't work. It just don't work. Too many inconsistencies, too much hate, and on top of that, too much grifting, and you just can't know anything about the Black American identity. Now Tiffany Haddish is Eritrean. Like, let's see if he can explain that.
Yeah, that's not news. She's I think part Eritrean. I think isn't her dad? I think her dad is Eritrean.
So now she's part Eritrean. Like he said, now she's part Eritrean, but he's still claiming that she's Eritrean all the way.
Eritrean. I think she's Eritrean. Yeah, her dad. Ain't her mom FBA? Yeah, I think her mom is FBA. Her dad is Eritrean. Yeah, her mom is FBA. Yeah. Her dad what? Oh, okay, her dad. Okay. Yeah, just like Nipsey. Nipsey's dad is Eritrean and his mom is FBA, which makes Nipsey FBA too.
So Nipsey is FBA, but Tiffany Haddish is Eritrean. You just heard what he said. Tiffany Haddish, father's Eritrean, mother's I'm not gonna say foundational Black, Native Black American. Tiffany Haddish, Eritrean. Nipsey Hussle, father Eritrean, mother is Native Black American, but Nipsey Hussle is FBA. Let's see if he can make that make sense.
A lot of folks try to be able to say, well, Nipsey was African. Nipsey was a foundational Black American, and his mother's foundational Black American.
So what about Tiffany Haddish? What about Tiffany Haddish?
Yeah. What African country is FBA? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? What does that mean? JBA, hop on. Jay, hop on. Let's talk about it. Can you elaborate on that question? Or was it just trolling for attention? I don't know. JBA, you want to hop on, sir?
I got to pause it before you let this dude hop on, because I want to see if the dude talks about speed or something like that, because I'm going to fast forward a little bit to see if he talks about speed again. But y'all see what I'm talking about. Chicken butt mouth. He literally said Tiffany Haddish is Eritrean and broke it down how her father's Eritrean and her mother is Native Black American. Then he said Nipsey Hussle is FBA, even though his father is also Eritrean and his mother is also Native Black American. You see how that work, right? You see, like, it's whatever Tariq say. This is why it's a cult. This is why that's the really only difference between ADOS and FBA is that FBA is a full-on cult. This man can say anything out his mouth and people gonna go for it. I bet you if that caller asks him or some caller asks him like, yo, how is she Eritrean but he's FBA? Tariq is gonna be like, well, I said so. Or, well, he put in work on the grassroots level. Like that changes lineages. Like that changes ethnicity.
JBA, hop on. The audio is going in and out. Can you hear me?
We got one.
JBA, you want to hop on? No, that's me at my office at the museum. Tired. Harvey's chicken situation.
Jeff, Nipsey, according to Tariq Nasheed, is FBA. Tariq Nasheed created FBA. He owns FBA. He is the leader of FBA. Go take that up with Tariq Nasheed. Until you go take that up with Tariq Nasheed, I'm putting you on timeout. And you can come back when you took that up with Tariq Nasheed. Take it up with Tariq Nasheed. I'm not going to allow you FBA bozos to come over here and try to contradict what Tariq Nasheed say, but y'all won't go to Tariq Nasheed and do it. Nuh-uh. That's out. That's out. Until you show me proof that you went to Tariq Nasheed and pressed him down about this issue. Like I said, Tariq go live every day. Y'all can talk to Tariq. I can't. So y'all go challenge Tariq on that issue. Until y'all do that, I don't want to hear nothing. We got 100 people in the building. Make sure y'all hitting that like button. Make sure y'all supporting the stream any way you can. PayPal, Cash App, super thanks. Help me hit my goal. I'll answer all questions.
In Houston, what happened with Harvey's chicken? What happened with Harvey's chicken in Houston? What happened with that chicken place? What's up, B1?
What's going on, Tariq?
How you doing, fam?
Man, I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak, man. We be checking you out all the time in these spaces or whatever. But Harvey's chicken, like a couple of days ago, Hispanic lady was calling the older black man the N-word inside the chicken spot, and you know, he was recording it, and he put the camera on the owner, and he was like, "You don't let your employee talk to me like that?" And the owner just like ignored him, didn't say nothing. So in the last couple of days, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but Cornell and the lady, you know, with the cowboy hat, they showed up there and they checked them. They checked the whole situation.
Oh, love that. Somebody just said she got fired, because I did see like the tail end of the clip. I just didn't know the context of it. So yeah, right. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, so they got out there. No, I'm in Fort Worth. I came to the FBA Expo. I've been to the deal you had in Atlanta too, when you had RZA and all of them there. Yeah, I've been to a few of your deals, but now I'm
hop on in. You got 10 seconds. Hop on in. You just got an invite. Hop on in and say what you got to say. Yeah, you're not going to just troll incessantly in the chat room. Love, you got 10 seconds. Hop on in. Hop on in. I'm going to personally block you.
So like, I kind of understand like the nuances of like the complexities, and I feel like my perspective is a little bit different from like people in the culture who are like super, you know, I don't know, like, you know, people came from here like maybe through like 400.
Okay, what the hell's going on? Did I lose my connection again? Let's see what Miss Gucci got going.
Don't look that good today, but all right. You know, after Anthony was like, play for high school. You know, play for high school, like no school.
You be safe, okay?
I think he's done talking about speed. He's done cloud chasing off of speed. Yeah, like I said, I was right. Shout out to everybody in the building. Tariq is a total goofball, total grifter, total nonsense. Yeah, so yeah, we got to get off that. Let's see something else. Let's get to this. Matter of fact, let's get to this. Let's do this. Let's move on to something more serious.
All right, family. Let me see. I'm gonna play this video until I'm waiting for the guest to come on for the interview. And let me play another video, and then I'll end the show as soon as he jumps on.
time over the past few years, then you've more than likely encountered their argument for Portuguese Jews and how they'll assert
From Babylon to Timbuktu by Rudolph Windsor, page 124, right? Because I believe that his book, just in my opinion, is the source for a lot of people using the term Black Portuguese to mean basically a pure, unmixed kind of population of Sephardic Jews or their descendants or something like that in Portugal or inside Africa. So we're gonna look into his source, and we're gonna just flow. We're gonna look into the Black Portuguese today, right? So this is page 124 of his text, right? And we're gonna go right here. The Black Jews, and I'm quoting his book, the Black Jews came to Africa not only by land, but also by sea. As you recall, in the year 1484, King John of Portugal deported great numbers of Black Jews to the African island of Sao Tome. The island of San Tome, near Nigeria and Cameroon, was discovered by the Portuguese in 1471, and it was established as a penal colony. To this island, Jews were sent who would not accept baptism. It is obvious that the Jews were deported to San Tome not only to mete out punishment to them, but King John's ulterior motive was to establish a commercial base with sophisticated Black Jews in his growing empire in Africa. As time elapsed, the Black Jews in Portugal and the Black Jews in the Portuguese colonial possessions became known as Black Portuguese, quote unquote Black Portuguese. They were called Black Portuguese because they were born in Portugal and they knew the history, culture, and language of Portugal. So here's the argument, basically. So I see a lot of people use this. So we're going to look into this, and we're going to look into this narrative of Sao Tome, right? And we're going to see how this unravels. Is this true? Is there any truth to this? Or are they Black Portuguese derived from a different means or a different source, right? So first I want to go to another source I see people use. It's called the Critical Review or Annals of Literature, volume 57, right, from 1783. And I'm going to start right down right here where it says King John, right? King John in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas. That's the same as saying St. Tome, right? Or Sao Tome, right? It had been discovered in 1471 and to other
All right, guys, I'm out of here.
Peace. Africa, and from these banished Jews